It began like any other evening on the subway, ordinary in all the ways cities try to forget. The metallic sigh of sliding doors. The screech of steel against steel. The exhausted silence of strangers pretending not to exist beside each other. But on this night, beneath the flickering lights of the Green Line heading northbound through Temple Station, something would break that indifference wide open. No one noticed the old man when he first stepped aboard. His movements were deliberate, slow, and weathered, like someone who had survived not just years but eras. His name was Walter Grayson, though few people knew it. Fewer still remembered. He was 90 years old, a retired Army colonel, and carried the years with a posture only war and memory could carve into bone. His coat, a faded olive trench with rusting buttons, bore the soft gleam of military decorations, one still barely clinging to a thread. Medals that once turned heads now faded into anonymity. Walter held tightly to a worn, curved wooden cane as he moved through the train, steadying himself with each step. He wasn't frail. He was precise. Purposeful. But he didn't command space anymore, not in this world of earbuds and Instagram feeds. He glanced left, then right. All the seats were taken. Office workers scrolled mindlessly through their phones. College students whispered about midterms and relationships. No one met his eyes. No one offered him a seat. So he stood, unmoving, one hand gripping the overhead bar, the other clutching the cane. He'd stood for longer in much worse places. Trenches soaked with blood. Villages turned to ash. Silence had been his only witness. Until now. "Yo, you gonna just stand there, Grandpa?" A voice cut through the din, sharp and mocking. Walter didn't turn, but he felt it. The change in the air. 5 of them. Late 20s, maybe. One wore a leather jacket ripped at the shoulders. Another had headphones slung around his neck blaring tinny bass. They leaned lazily near the doors like predators bored with the absence of prey until they saw Walter. The ringleader was the tallest, lean, cocky, with a studded eyebrow and a sneer that had probably gotten him laid in places with too little light and too much beer. His name was Kyle Mercer. Kyle elbowed his friend beside him and said louder, "Hey, old-timer, you deaf, or just ignoring me?" Still, Walter didn't move. His gaze stayed forward, distant. But his ears, those still worked fine. But he left his hearing in Vietnam. Another one laughed. A few passengers looked up, glanced over, and then returned to pretending nothing was happening. Because that's what you did on public transit. You looked away. You always looked away. Kyle stepped closer, crowding Walter's space. The train lurched slightly, and Kyle pretended to stumble into him, knocking his shoulder. Walter held fast to the pole. His grip didn't loosen. His feet didn't budge. "Easy there," Kyle said mockingly. "I'd hate to knock you back into the Korean War." More laughter. Ugly. Mean. Then Kyle grinned and leaned in, voice low and syrupy. "Why don't you take a seat, huh, Grandpa?" "Oh wait, forgot. No reserved spots for war heroes anymore." Walter slowly turned his head. His eyes, steel gray, cutting, ancient, and unwavering, locked onto Kyle. Everything froze for a moment. The smirk faltered. Only a twitch, but Walter saw it. A crack in the armor. Kyle scoffed and turned to his crew. "Looks like we got a tough guy." The train shook again, and Walter barely moved. Kyle swayed, off balance for a heartbeat. That was the second crack. Then Kyle's hand darted out, snatching Walter's military hat from his head. The old fabric twisted in his fingers like a toy. "Damn," Kyle said, flipping it over. "This thing's older than half the passengers on this train." He tossed it to one of his friends, who spun it on his finger like a basketball. The passengers still didn't intervene. The disrespect hung in the air like a stench. Walter remained still, his face carved from stone. But his hand, gripping the cane, flexed ever so slightly. The train began to slow, the overhead voice announcing the next station. Kyle stepped close again, so close Walter could smell his breath, cheap gum and cheaper arrogance. "What's the matter, soldier boy? Ain't got no fight left." Walter blinked once. 5. Kyle in front. 2 behind. 1 by the doors. 1 still spinning the hat. Amateurs. The train doors hissed open. Walter adjusted his coat, buttoned it slowly. Then, without a word, stepped off the train into the dim lights of the underground station. Kyle's eyebrows lifted. "Yo, follow him." The 5 thugs slinked after the old man like a pack of wolves chasing a limping deer. They were still laughing, but not for long. The station smelled of wet concrete and neglect. The overhead lights flickered, casting long, twitching shadows across the tiled floor. Walter walked with his cane tapping softly, deliberately, echoing in a rhythm that almost sounded ceremonial. He knew they were behind him. He could feel them. He didn't look back. His eyes were focused on the stairwell up to the street, marked by a red exit sign flickering like a weak heartbeat. He climbed one step, then another. Behind him, the shuffle of shoes picked up. "Where you going, Gramps?" Someone called out. "We just want to talk." Walter took one more step. Then Kyle was there, blocking his path. He wore the smile of a man who thought he was still in control, who thought intimidation was dominance. "You don't just walk away from us." Walter met his eyes. Kyle snarled. "You think you're better than us?" Walter said nothing, but he saw it. The tension in Kyle's jaw, the shift in weight, the flex of fingers. The punch was coming. Walter braced, but it never landed, because a voice, deep, cold, and calm, boomed from the top of the stairs. "Take your hands off my father." Time fractured. Kyle froze. The rest turned toward the voice. Standing at the top of the stairs was a man dressed in a black tactical jacket, frame wide as a door frame, boots solid on the ground. He descended slowly, one step, then another. His name was Commander Mason Grayson, Walter's son, Delta Force, retired, highly decorated, lethal, quiet. But when Mason spoke, it felt like the world held its breath. Kyle's smirk evaporated. "Who the hell are you?" Mason kept descending. Step, step. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. He was already close. Then, so fast even Walter barely saw it, Mason lunged. One arm swept Kyle's legs. The other struck his chest. Kyle went airborne. The impact against the wall echoed like thunder. Kyle groaned, sliding down, windless. The others didn't move. Then Kyle, staggering, furious, pulled something from his jacket. A knife. Bad choice. Mason didn't hesitate. He pivoted, kicked. The blade clattered to the floor. Kyle screamed, holding his wrist. Mason grabbed his collar, slammed him against the wall, and leaned close. "You put your hands on my father," he said, voice low as a blade unsheathed. Kyle trembled. Behind him, his crew began to retreat. One mumbled, We didn't know, man." Mason turned to him. Just a look. That was enough. They vanished, one by one. Kyle remained pinned. Shattered ego, broken pride, empty hands. Mason let him go. Kyle dropped to the floor. Then Mason turned to his father. His expression softened. "You all right?" Walter breathed in, smiled faintly. "Took you long enough." Mason chuckled, a sound like gravel breaking under tires. He put a strong hand on his father's shoulder. They walked up the stairs together, side by side, old war and modern war. And behind them, justice lingered in the silence like a storm that had finally passed.